Commander Zara Chen pressed her back against the cold metal wall and counted her remaining ammunition. 12 shots left in her plasma rifle. Around her, the sounds of battle echoed through the mining station like thunder in a cave. The smell of burned metal and alien blood hung heavy in the recycled air. "Commander!" Private Torres called out from his position near the blast doors. "They're setting up another siege engine on the east wall," Chen cursed under her breath. That would be the 4th one today. The Krillians were like a swarm of angry lizards, and they had more weapons than her small force could possibly handle. She looked across the command center at the strange sight that had become normal over the past 6 days. Human Marines worked side by side with their Valthari allies, the insect-like creatures moving with quick, precise motions as they checked their weapons and equipment. Queen Commander Zissith clicked her way over to Chen's position. The Valthari leader was almost 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Her natural armor plates had several new scars from the fighting. "Commander Chen," Zissith said in her clicking voice, "my calculations show we have perhaps 4 hours before our shields fail completely. The Krillian force outnumbers us 50 to 1. Logic suggests we should consider surrender." Chen shook her head. "We've been over this. Surrender means slavery for my people and death for yours. Neither of those options work for me." The Valthari's mandibles clicked in what Chen had learned was their version of a smile. "Your species continues to surprise mine, Commander. Any logical race would have given up days ago, yet here you stand, planning to fight an unwinnable battle. Maybe that's why humans and Valthari make good allies," Chen replied. "You think through every problem, and we're too stubborn to quit when the thinking says we should." A massive explosion shook the station, and chunks of ceiling fell around them. Through the reinforced windows, Chen could see the Krillian army spreading across the mining fields like a dark tide. Their war machines looked like living things, grown rather than built. Biomechanical creatures the size of tanks crawled forward on multiple legs, their weapons glowing with energy. Chen's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rodriguez, approached with a grim expression. "Ma'am, we just lost contact with Section C. That's the last of our outer defenses." "How many do we have left?" Chen asked. 47 humans, 23 Valthari. We're down to emergency power in most sections." Chen nodded. It wasn't good news, but it wasn't a surprise either. They had been fighting a losing battle since the Krillians arrived in orbit 6 days ago. The enemy had destroyed their ships, cut off their supply lines, and systematically destroyed every defensive position around the mining complex. The Krillians were good at war. Their entire society was built around conquest and domination. They had been expanding across this part of the galaxy for decades, enslaving every species they encountered. Most civilizations surrendered without a fight once they saw the size of a Krillian war fleet. But humans were different. Chen and her Marines were part of the Terran Colonial Defense Force, and they had been trained to hold the line no matter what. The mining colony on Kepler 442b was too important to lose. The rare Earth elements they extracted here were needed for humanity's faster-than-light drives. Without them, human expansion into space would stop completely. Another explosion, closer this time. Chen could hear the distinct sound of Krillian plasma weapons burning through the station's outer hull. The enemy was getting ready for their final assault. "Commander," came a voice from the communications station. Corporal Kim was hunched over his equipment, adjusting frequencies with practiced skill. "I'm picking up something strange on the emergency channel." Chen moved over to the communication station. "What kind of strange?" "It's encrypted with our highest military codes." "But that's impossible. The nearest human fleet is 6 months away." Kim played the message. Through the static, Chen heard a voice she recognized. "Admiral Hayes, commander of Earth's 3rd Assault Fleet. Storm clouds gathering. Thunder in 72 hours. Hold the line." The message was short, but Chen felt her heart skip a beat. Admiral Hayes had been her instructor at the military academy years ago. She knew his voice, knew his way of speaking in code. But it made no sense. Earth was impossibly far away. "Could it be fake?" Rodriguez asked. "Maybe the Krillians are trying to trick us." Chen studied the authentication codes. They were real, and they were recent. No, this is genuine. But I don't understand how. Queen Commander Xisth had been listening with interest. Commander, what does this message mean to your people? It means reinforcements are coming, Chen said. But the math doesn't work. No ship can travel from Earth to here in 72 hours. It would take months, even with our best technology. The Valthari's compound eyes reflected the light from the communication screens. Yet, your admiral chose to send this message. Perhaps humans have capabilities that are not widely known? Before Chen could answer, the blast doors exploded inward. Krillian shock troops poured through the breach, their reptilian faces twisted with battle rage. These weren't the normal Krillian soldiers, they were the elite units, each one standing 8 feet tall and covered in natural armor scales. Defensive positions, Chen shouted. The command center erupted in gunfire. Human plasma rifles and Valthari energy weapons lit up the room like deadly fireworks. The Krillians moved fast, but they were walking into a carefully prepared kill zone. Chen and her people had been planning for this moment. War Chief Thraxmore stepped through the breach, his massive form blocking the doorway. The Krillian leader was almost 9 feet tall, with scars covering his armor-like skin. In his clawed hands, he carried a weapon that looked like it could punch holes through tank armor. Humans, Thraxmore roared in accented English. You have fought well, but this ends now. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick. Chen raised her plasma rifle and aimed it directly at the war chief's head. Here's my answer. She pulled the trigger, and the battle for the command center began in earnest. Around her, humans and Valthari fought side by side against an enemy that should have been impossible to defeat, but Chen held on to Admiral Hayes' message like a lifeline. Storm clouds gathering, thunder in 72 hours. She just had to keep her people alive for 3 more days. Somehow, some way, help was coming. Chen didn't understand how, but she believed it with every fiber of her being. The war for Kepler 442b was about to change in ways no one could imagine. 3 days had passed since Admiral Hayes' strange message, and Commander Chen was starting to think it had been a cruel joke. The Krillian assault had grown more intense with each passing hour. Now, as she crouched behind an overturned table in what used to be the mining station's cafeteria, she could hear the enemy's biomechanical war machines tearing through the outer walls like paper. The creatures were nightmares made real. Each one was the size of a small building, with multiple legs that ended in drilling claws. Their bodies pulsed with organic life, but their weapons were pure destruction. Chen watched through a crack in the wall as one of them punched a hole straight through 3 feet of reinforced metal with a single blast from its main gun. How many people do we have left? She asked Lieutenant Rodriguez, who was bandaging a wound on his arm. 31 humans, 15 Valthari. Rodriguez replied grimly. We lost another section when they brought down the north wall. Chen nodded. In 3 days of fighting, they had lost more than half their people. Every hour brought fewer defenders and more enemies. The Krillians seemed to have an endless supply of soldiers and war machines. Private Jackson stumbled into their position, his young face covered in dust and blood. He was barely 19 years old, fresh out of basic training, when this nightmare began. Now he moved like a veteran, checking corners and keeping his weapon ready. Commander, Jackson said, breathing hard. They're setting up for a final push. I count at least 50 heavy units moving toward the central complex. Queen Commander Xisth clicked her way over to their group. The Valthari leader had lost one of her arms in yesterday's fighting, but she still moved with deadly grace. Commander Chen, my people have a saying. When the hive is lost, the warrior queens sing their death songs and die with honor. We're not dead yet, Chen said firmly. Perhaps not, Xisth replied. But mathematics are absolute. They have overwhelming numbers, superior weapons, and control of the orbital space around this planet. We have bravery and determination. In most equations, that is not enough. Chen couldn't argue with the logic. The Valthari were natural tacticians, bred for defensive warfare over thousands of years. If Xisth said their position was hopeless, it probably was. But humans had never been good at accepting the impossible. A new sound echoed through the station, different from the explosions and weapons fire. It was a deep, rhythmic pounding, like a giant hammer hitting metal. Chen realized what it was and felt her stomach drop. "They're using siege rams," she said. "They're going to break through the main blast doors." The central complex where they had made their last stand was the heart of the mining operation. Its walls were thicker than anywhere else in the station, and the blast doors were designed to withstand almost anything. But the Krillians had brought something special for this final assault. Through the reinforced windows, Chen could see the massive biomechanical ram. It looked like a living battering ram, its organic surface rippling with muscle and bone. Each time it struck the blast doors, the entire station shook. "How long do those doors have?" Rodriguez asked. "Maybe an hour," Chen replied. "2 if we're lucky." Private Jackson was checking his ammunition pouches, his hands shaking slightly. "Ma'am, is that message really going to mean anything? The one from Admiral Hayes?" Chen looked at the young Marine. She had been asking herself the same question for 3 days. Logic said it was impossible. No human technology could travel from Earth to Kepler 442b in 72 hours. But Hayes wasn't the kind of man who made empty promises. "I don't know, Jackson," she said honestly. "But we're going to keep fighting either way." The pounding on the blast doors grew louder. Each impact sent vibrations through the floor that Chen could feel in her bones. Mixed with the sound were the war cries of Krillian soldiers, a harsh clicking noise that sounded like breaking glass. War Chief Thrax Moore's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "Humans, you have fought longer than expected, and my warriors respect your courage. But this foolishness ends now. Surrender, and you will be granted the honor of slavery. Continue to resist, and you will be torn apart, piece by piece." Chen picked up the communicator and switched it to broadcast mode. "Thrax Moore, this is Commander Chen. Here's my counteroffer. Go back to whatever rock you crawled out from under, and we won't kill every last one of your soldiers." The war chief's laughter boomed through the speakers. "Your spirit amuses me, human. When I capture you, I will keep you alive long enough to watch your people become slaves." Chen turned off the communicator and checked her weapon. She had 8 shots left in her plasma rifle and 2 energy cells for her sidearm. Around her, the last defenders of Kepler 442b were making similar preparations. The Valthari had begun their death song, a low humming sound that vibrated through their chest plates. It was beautiful and sad, a melody that spoke of sacrifice and honor. Even though Chen couldn't understand the words, she felt tears in her eyes listening to it. "You know what I don't understand?" Rodriguez said suddenly. "What's that?" Chen asked. "Why they want this place so badly. It's just a mining colony. There are plenty of other worlds with the same resources." Queen Commander Sith stopped her death song long enough to answer. "It is not about the resources, Lieutenant. It is about the message. If humans can be defeated here, other species will know that Earth's colonies are vulnerable. Fear is a more powerful weapon than any gun." Chen understood. This wasn't just about Kepler 442b. This was about humanity's place in the galaxy. If the Krillians could destroy a human colony and enslave its defenders, other aggressive species would see humans as easy targets. Earth's expansion into space would end before it really began. The blast doors shuddered under another impact from the siege ram. Chen could see cracks appearing in the metal, small fractures that would soon become holes. Once those doors failed, the Krillians would pour into the central complex like water through a broken dam. 31 humans and 15 Valthari against 10,000 Krillians, Chen said out loud. "Those are terrible odds." Private Jackson managed a weak smile. "I've heard worse odds in stories, ma'am." "This isn't a story, Jackson. This is real life." "Yes, ma'am. But sometimes real life needs heroes too." Chen looked around at her people. They were exhausted, wounded, and running low on ammunition. They faced an enemy that outnumbered them hundreds to 1. In any logical universe, they should have surrendered days ago, but these were humans and Valthari. And neither species was particularly logical when it came to protecting what mattered. The blast doors shuddered again. and this time pieces of metal fell to the floor. Chen estimated they had maybe 20 minutes before the Krillians broke through. 20 minutes to hold the line. 20 minutes to prove that Earth's colonies were not easy targets. 20 minutes to show the galaxy that humanity would not go quietly into slavery. She raised her plasma rifle and aimed it at the cracking blast doors. Around her, 45 other weapons did the same thing. Storm clouds gathering, Chen whispered to herself. Thunder in 72 hours. The countdown was almost over. The blast doors exploded inward with a deafening crash. Metal fragments flew across the command center like deadly rain, and Commander Chen felt a sharp piece slice across her cheek. Through the smoke and dust, she could see the massive forms of Krillian shock troops pouring through the breach. "Here they come," Lieutenant Rodriguez shouted. Chen opened fire with her plasma rifle, the bright energy bolts lighting up the smoke-filled room. Around her, the last defenders of Kepler 442b did the same. The air filled with the sound of weapons, fire, and alien war cries. But something was wrong. The proximity alarms throughout the station had started screaming, their electronic voices cutting through the battle noise like knives. Chen had heard those alarms before, but never during ground combat. They were orbital detection systems, designed to warn of incoming ships. War Chief Thraxmore paused in the doorway, his massive form blocking the light from behind. The Krillian leader was listening to something through his communication device, his reptilian features twisted in confusion. "What trickery is this?" Thraxmore demanded in his harsh voice. "My orbital commanders report massive signatures, dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly above this world." Chen felt her heart skip a beat. Could it be? After 3 days of desperate fighting, was Admiral Hayes' impossible promise about to come true? Through the cracked windows of the command center, Chen saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. The sky was on fire, not from explosions or orbital bombardment, but from hundreds of controlled entries. Streaks of light were falling toward the planet like stars, each one trailing fire and moving with deadly purpose. "Hell pods," Chen whispered in amazement. Queen Commander Zissus, despite having never seen them before, understood immediately what she was witnessing. Orbital assault capsules. But the scale, there are hundreds of them. The first hellpod hit the mining station's outer perimeter with an impact that shook the entire complex. Chen had seen orbital drops before, but never anything like this. The pod didn't just land. It crashed through 3 levels of the station and kept going, boring deep into the rock below before coming to rest. Then it opened. What emerged from that first hellpod made Chen's colonial marine equipment look like toys. Earth's assault corps stepped onto Kepler 442b wearing powered armor that turned ordinary humans into walking tanks. Each soldier stood 8 feet tall in their gear, with weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. But it wasn't just one pod. Across the mining facility, dozens of hellpods were impacting simultaneously. Each one disgorged a full squad of Earth's finest soldiers, and they immediately began moving with a coordination that took Chen's breath away. War Chief Thraxmore was shouting orders through his communication device, trying to understand what was happening to his forces outside. The biomechanical siege engines that had been systematically destroying the station were suddenly under attack by enemies they couldn't see coming. Through the station's external cameras, Chen watched Earth's assault troops work. They moved like ghosts, appearing from nowhere to destroy Krillian positions with surgical precision. Their weapons seemed to adapt to whatever they were fighting, switching between different types of energy beams and projectiles based on the target. But the real shock came when Admiral Hayes' voice cut through every communication channel on the planet. It was broadcast on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible to access, reaching every radio, every communication device, every electronic system simultaneously. "This is Earth Assault Fleet Designation Hammerblow," the Admiral's voice said calmly. "We received your distress call 6 months ago. We've been traveling the whole time, through folded space." Folded space. Chen had heard rumors about experimental faster-than-light technology that could compress the distance between stars, but she thought it was science fiction. Apparently, Earth's military had been busy while the colonies struggled to defend themselves. Thraxmore's confusion was turning to anger. "Impossible! No species has such technology. My forces outnumber yours 10 to 1, His words were cut off by an explosion that shook the entire station. Through the windows, Chen could see one of the massive biomechanical war machines burning like a torch. Earth's assault troops had somehow destroyed in minutes what had taken her people days to barely slow down. The Krillian war chief was receiving more reports through his communication device, and his reptilian face was growing darker with each message. My siege engines, destroyed. My orbital fleet, under attack. How can this be? Chen was beginning to understand. Earth hadn't just sent a rescue mission. They had sent a demonstration of power that would echo across the galaxy. The scale of the operation was staggering. How many ships had it taken to deliver this many assault troops? How long had Earth been planning this moment? More hellpods were still falling from orbit, their fiery trails lighting up the sky like deadly fireworks. Chen counted at least 200 separate impacts across the mining facility and the surrounding area. That meant thousands of Earth's assault troops were now on the surface, and they were moving with a precision that made military textbooks look primitive. Lieutenant Rodriguez was monitoring the tactical displays, his eyes wide with amazement. Ma'am, they're not just fighting the Krillians, they're destroying them, systematically, like they know exactly where every enemy position is located. Queen Commander Sissist was watching the displays with her compound eyes, calculating probabilities at superhuman speed. This is not random military action, she said. This is a planned operation executed with perfect timing. Your species has been preparing for this moment. Chen was starting to realize the truth. Earth hadn't just developed new technology, they had been studying their enemies, learning their weaknesses, developing specific countermeasures for every alien military they encountered. The Assault Corps wasn't just better equipped than colonial marines. They were specifically designed to fight alien species. Another explosion rocked the station as Earth forces destroyed a Krillian command post less than half a mile away. The assault troops were moving through enemy positions like a knife through paper, hitting multiple targets simultaneously with devastating effect. Thrax Moore was backing away from the blast doors, his confident demeanor cracking like broken glass. This cannot be happening. The hegemony has conquered a dozen species. We are masters of warfare. Not anymore, Chen said, raising her plasma rifle to cover the retreating Krillians. Through the external communications, she could hear Admiral Hayes coordinating the assault with calm professionalism. Assault Group Alpha. Priority targets eliminated. Assault Group Beta. Moving to secondary objectives. All units, maintain formation and continue advance. It was like listening to a perfectly choreographed dance of destruction. Earth's military had turned warfare into a science, and the Krillians were discovering they were not the apex predators they thought they were. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors outside the command center, but these weren't Krillian footsteps. These were the measured, purposeful steps of Earth's Assault Corps, moving through the station like they owned it. Chen heard a voice through her communication device, speaking in calm, professional English. Colonial Defense Force personnel, this is Earth Assault Corps Major Harrison. Please identify your positions and prepare for friendly contact. For the first time in 6 days, Chen smiled. Real help had arrived, and it was more devastating than anything she could have imagined. Earth had been hiding its true military capabilities, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not just another species to be conquered. The thunder had arrived, and it was shaking the foundations of known space. Major Harrison entered the command center like he owned the place. Earth's Assault Corps officer stood 8 feet tall in his powered armor. But he moved with surprising grace for something so large. His helmet retracted automatically as he approached, revealing a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. Commander Chen, Major Harrison said in a calm voice. Admiral Hayes sends his regards. We're here to clean up this mess. Chen stared at the man in amazement. 6 days ago, she had been fighting a hopeless battle against impossible odds. Now, Earth's military was treating the Krillian invasion like a minor problem to be solved. Major, how many troops did Earth send? She asked. Full Assault Corps deployment, ma'am. 15,000 combat personnel, plus support elements. We've been preparing for this specific scenario for quite some time. 15,000 troops against 10,000 Krillians should have been a fair fight. But as Chen watched the tactical displays, she realized this wasn't a fair fight at all. It was a masterclass in military superiority. War Chief Thrax Moore was huddled against the far wall with a handful of his surviving shock troops, speaking rapidly into his communication device. His confident demeanor had completely evaporated as reports came in from across the battlefield. "My siege engines are destroyed," Thrax Moore snarled. "My orbital fleet is scattered. How is this possible? The hegemony has never faced such coordinated resistance." Queen Commander Zissith was studying the tactical displays with fascination. As a member of a species bred for defensive warfare, she understood military tactics better than most. What she was seeing shouldn't have been possible. "Major Harrison," Zissith said, "your forces are moving with precision that violates normal military doctrine. How do you coordinate so many units across such a wide area?" Harrison smiled grimly. "We don't fight like other species, Commander. While your people build strong defenses, and the Krillians rely on overwhelming numbers, humans have weaponized information itself." He gestured to a display that showed the entire battlefield from orbit. Earth's assault troops were moving in perfect coordination, hitting multiple targets simultaneously while avoiding friendly fire. It was like watching a computer simulation, except it was happening in real time with living soldiers. "Every assault trooper has real-time tactical data," Harrison explained. "We know where every enemy is located, what weapons they're carrying, and what their likely response will be. We don't just react to the enemy, we predict their moves and counter them before they happen." Chen was beginning to understand the true scope of what Earth had accomplished. This wasn't just better training or superior equipment. This was warfare elevated to an art form. Lieutenant Rodriguez was monitoring communications from the Krillian forces, translating their panic-filled reports. "Ma'am, they're saying their biomechanical war machines are being destroyed faster than they can deploy them. Their orbital commanders are requesting immediate retreat authorization." "Retreat?" Thrax Moore roared. "The hegemony does not retreat. We are the masters of this galaxy." Major Harrison looked at the Krillian war chief with something that might have been pity. "You were the masters of this galaxy. But you made the mistake of assuming humans fight like everyone else." Through the windows, Chen could see Earth's assault troops moving through the mining facility like deadly ghosts. They didn't advance in predictable formations like most military forces. Instead, they flowed around obstacles and resistance like water, hitting weak points while avoiding strong defenses entirely. But the most impressive thing wasn't their individual skills. It was how they worked together. Chen watched as one squad used mining equipment to create improvised artillery, while another squad coordinated orbital strikes from the assault fleet above. A third squad was using the station's own power grid to overload Krillian communication systems. "They're turning our own infrastructure against us," she said in amazement. "Standard human doctrine," Harrison replied. "Why destroy useful resources when you can capture and repurpose them? We've studied every piece of equipment on this station. We know how to use it better than the people who built it." Queen Commander Sissis was watching the displays with her compound eyes, processing information at inhuman speeds. This level of preparation suggests long-term planning. How long has Earth been developing these capabilities? "Since first contact with alien species," Harrison said honestly. "Earth's leadership realized that we would eventually encounter hostile civilizations. Instead of hoping for peaceful solutions, we prepared for war. We've been studying every alien species we encounter, learning their strengths and weaknesses, developing specific countermeasures." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Earth hadn't just been defending its colonies. It had been preparing to announce its presence as a major galactic power, and the Krillian attack on Kepler 442b had provided the perfect opportunity. More reports came in from the battlefield, each one more devastating than the last. The Krillian siege engines that had seemed invincible were burning across the mining facility. Their orbital fleet was being systematically destroyed by Earth ships that fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Private Jackson, who had been quietly listening to the communications, suddenly spoke up. "Major, sir, how did you get here so fast?" "Earth is 6 months away by normal, faster-than-light travel." Harrison looked at the young Marine with respect. "Good question, Private. Earth scientists have been working on folded space technology for decades. We can now compress the distance between stars, allowing near instantaneous travel across vast distances. But the power requirements are enormous. So we save it for special occasions. Like rescuing colonists from impossible odds? Chen asked. Like announcing to the galaxy that humanity is no longer hiding its capabilities, Harrison corrected. The Major activated a holographic display that showed the entire Kepler 442b system. Earth's assault fleet was positioned around the planet, like a steel cage, cutting off all escape routes for the Krillian forces. But Chen could see that it was more than just positioning. The human ships were actively hunting down every enemy vessel, destroying them with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Your species fights without honor. Thraxmore snarled from his position against the wall. You use trickery and deception instead of honest battle. Harrison looked at the war chief with cold eyes. Honor is a luxury for species that can afford to lose battles. Humans fight to win, and we do whatever it takes to protect our people. If that makes us dishonorable in your eyes, we can live with that. The final Krillian resistance was collapsing across the mining facility. Earth's assault troops had systematically destroyed every enemy position using tactics that seemed almost supernatural in their precision. They had turned a desperate last stand into a complete victory in less than 4 hours. But Chen was beginning to realize that the victory on Kepler 442b was just the beginning. Earth had revealed capabilities that would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. Every aggressive species would now have to recalculate their expansion plans, knowing that humanity was watching and preparing countermeasures. Major, she said, what happens next? Harrison smiled grimly. Now we send a message that will be heard across known space. The age of easy conquest is over. Humanity is no longer just another species to be enslaved or destroyed. We are the new variable in the galactic equation, and we fight to win. Through the communication system, Admiral Hayes' voice echoed across the planet one final time. All Krillian forces, this is your only warning. Surrender immediately or face complete destruction. You have 60 seconds to comply. The war chief looked around the command center at the faces of humans and Valtharai who had refused to surrender despite impossible odds. For the first time since the invasion began, Thraxmore's expression showed something that looked like respect. Your species is not what we expected, he said quietly. No, Chen replied. We're not. 3 days after the hellpods fell from the sky, Commander Zara Chen stood in the ruins of Mining Station Omega-7's command center and watched the last Krillian transport ship disappear into the darkness of space. The battle for Kepler 442b was over, but its consequences would echo across the galaxy for generations. Admiral Hayes had arrived on the surface that morning, his shuttle touching down in the same mining field where Krillian biomechanical war machines had once crawled like living nightmares. Now those same fields were marked with smoking craters and the twisted remains of alien technology that had been systematically destroyed by Earth's assault corps. Colonel Chen, Admiral Hayes said, approaching her position near the damaged windows. Chen still wasn't used to her new rank, promoted on the spot for holding the line during the impossible 6-day siege. Admiral, she replied, saluting crisply. Final casualty reports are in. We lost 28 humans and 11 Valthari during the siege. Earth forces lost 3 personnel during the assault phase. Hayes nodded grimly. Their sacrifice saved more than just this mining colony, Colonel. They gave us the moral justification to reveal Earth's true military capabilities to the galaxy. Chen looked out at the reconstruction efforts beginning across the facility. Human engineers worked alongside Valthari technicians, and even a few Krillian prisoners of war, rebuilding what the invasion had destroyed. It was a strange sight, former enemies working together under Earth's supervision. Queen Commander Zist approached their position, moving with the precise grace that all Valthari possessed. The insect-like commander had lost an arm during the fighting, but she wore the injury like a badge of honor. Admiral Hayes, Zist said in her clicking voice, the Valthari Collective has reached a decision regarding our future relationship with humanity. Hayes turned to face the alien commander with interest. And what decision is that, Queen Commander? We formally request a military alliance with Earth, Zissa said. My people have spent thousands of years perfecting defensive warfare. But your species has shown us something we thought impossible. Perfect offense as the ultimate form of defense. Chen smiled. The Valthari were natural tacticians, bred for military analysis over countless generations. If they wanted to ally with humanity, it meant they understood what Earth's victory on Kepler 442b really represented. Your request will be considered favorably, Admiral Hayes replied diplomatically. Earth values allies who understand the realities of galactic politics. Across the mining facility, the cleanup continued. Earth's engineers were not just rebuilding the damaged structures. They were improving them. The new defensive systems being installed would make Kepler 442b one of the most heavily fortified positions in human space. Any future attackers would face weapons and shields that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything previously seen. War Chief Thraxmore was brought to their position under heavy guard. The massive Krillian leader had been captured during the final assault, and his fate would send a message to every aggressive species in the galaxy. But Hayes had something specific in mind for the former conqueror. Thraxmore, Admiral Hayes said calmly, you're going to deliver a message to the Krillian High Command for me. The War Chief's reptilian features twisted with anger and humiliation. I will not be your messenger, human. Yes, you will, Hayes replied with certainty. Because the alternative is spending the rest of your life in an Earth prison, forgotten by your own people. This way, you get to go home and warn them about what happens when someone attacks humanity's colonies. Thraxmore was quiet for a long moment, calculating his limited options. Finally, he spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. What message would you have me deliver? Tell them that humanity is no longer just another primitive species to be enslaved. Tell them that we've been watching, learning, and preparing. Tell them that any future attacks on human colonies will be met with the same overwhelming response they witnessed here. Chen could see the war chief processing the implications. The Krillian hegemony had built its power on the assumption that other species were inferior. The complete destruction of their invasion force on Kepler 442b challenged that fundamental belief. Your species fights without honor, Thraxmore said bitterly. Our species fights to win, Hayes corrected. Honor is a luxury for civilizations that can afford to lose battles. Humanity learned long ago that survival requires practical solutions, not noble gestures. Lieutenant Rodriguez approached their group with a datapad containing the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, we're receiving communications from across known space. Word about the battle is spreading faster than we anticipated. Hayes took the datapad and scrolled through the reports. Interesting. The hegemony has already recalled 3 invasion fleets that were moving toward human colonies. The Talkari Empire is requesting diplomatic contact for the first time. The Void Hunters have completely withdrawn from this sector of space. Chen understood what she was reading. Earth's demonstration of military power had achieved more than just the defense of one mining colony. It had fundamentally altered the balance of power across the entire galaxy. How long were you planning this? She asked Admiral Hayes. Since first contact with alien civilizations, Hayes replied honestly. Earth's leadership realized that we would eventually encounter species like the Krillians. Instead of hoping for peaceful solutions, we prepared for the worst-case scenario. He gestured toward the orbital displays showing Earth's assault fleet in position around Kepler 442b. Every ship in that fleet incorporates technology decades ahead of anything we've publicly revealed. Every weapon system has been specifically designed to counter alien military capabilities. We've been studying our potential enemies for years, developing countermeasures for every threat we might face. Queen Commander Zissith clicked her mandibles in what Chen had learned was admiration. Your species has turned military preparation into an art form. My people respect such dedication to survival. Private Jackson, who had survived the siege despite his youth, was working nearby with a team of Earth engineers. Chen called him over to join their conversation. Jackson, you asked me during the siege if Admiral Hayes's message was real or just hope. What do you think now? The young Marine looked around at the massive reconstruction effort, the alien allies working alongside human forces, and the orbital fleet that had traveled impossible distances to rescue them. I think hope and reality aren't always different things, ma'am. Jackson said thoughtfully. Sometimes hope is just seeing something that hasn't happened yet. Admiral Hayes smiled at the young Marine's response. Well said, Private. Earth's colonies have been hoping for protection they could count on. Now they have it. 6 months later, Chen stood in the same command center, now completely rebuilt and heavily fortified. The facility that had barely survived a 6-day siege was now one of the most secure installations in human space. More importantly, it had become a symbol of humanity's new status in galactic politics. Reports came in daily from across known space. The Krillian hegemony had sued for peace, offering reparations for their invasion attempt. 3 other aggressive species had withdrawn their forces from human territory without being asked. The galactic community, which had once viewed Earth as a minor frontier civilization, now sought humanity's approval for major political decisions. Queen Commander Zissist had established a permanent embassy on Kepler 442b, and the Valthari Collective had become Earth's first formal alien ally. Their combined defensive and offensive capabilities were already being studied by potential enemies, who found the partnership extremely intimidating. But the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity itself. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would reshape interstellar politics for generations. Earth's people didn't just fight for survival. They fought to win so decisively that the fight never needed to happen again. Chen picked up a communication device and activated the memorial frequency, dedicated to the 39 humans and Valthari who had died holding the line during those desperate 6 days. This is Colonel Chen at Mining Station Omega 7, she said into the device. The storm clouds gathered, and when the thunder came, it was heard across the galaxy. Your sacrifice mattered. Your courage changed everything. Rest easy, warriors. Earth remembers. Outside her windows, human and alien workers continued the never-ending job of building something better from the ruins of war. The galaxy was a different place now, and humanity had announced its presence in terms that no one would forget. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of human prominence had begun.